Hi, it's Colin Coward. I started The Volume to bring you some of the most authentic voices in sports. While you're here, make sure you hit subscribe. Thanks.
One story today is Tom Clement. Remember, McCarthy, I think, fired him as their quarterback coach, and Rodgers was pissed off. Rodgers already thought McCarthy was a big meathead, and then he fired his guy that he really loved. Well, a huge part of the Rodgers drama, to me, Rodgers, it's lucky that he's as good as he is, because I hate shit like this. Again, it feels, what I said about Kyler Murray feels NBA. And when you feel NBA, when from a drama standpoint, like, it's too much for me. It's too much fluff. It's too much like all about Twitter. It doesn't interest me. It bores me. And like, to me, Kyler Murray thing, I just think it's clown activity. Now, why I don't totally think that with Rodgers is because he's one of the best players I've ever seen. And if you're going to be one of the best, like ultimately Kevin Durant can be kind of weird, but he's a top 10 player of all time. Like he's one of the most talented human beings I've ever seen in a sport. Barry Bonds, royal asshole. You know why Barry Bonds didn't bother me? Because I grew up a Giants fan and he hit 45 home runs a year. And then he did the cream and the clear and started hitting 65, 70. You know, if you're going to be the cream of the crop, the best in the business, like, I can handle a diva. Taylor Swift's a little bit of diva. She also slings about 200 million records or downloads or whatever, right? I can deal with it. Like, I can deal with Aaron Rodgers shit. And I don't even think it can be a little overblown, but clearly he just drama follows the guy around. But he's one of the greatest players to ever play the position. Ideally, would I want Brady? Would I want Manning? Would I want, Mahomes or Josh Allen? Like, no drama? Of course. But that's not always the case. And that's why I disagree a little bit with Colin. Colin thinks like with Kyler Murray, he's got to handle the drama. Like, Colin, he's not good enough to handle his drama. He's talented, but the last 2 years down the stretch, he's gotten throttled. He's become, it used to be Tommy Lasorda said it was a limo guy. I'm going to change it to an Uber guy. You're sending the Uber to pick Kyler Murray up in a big game because I don't want him to miss a snap, right? Tommy Lasorda used to say when he wanted to make sure Bavacqua was in the lineup, he'd send a limo to the hotel to make sure that he was in this, get his ABs because he would strike that dude out, right? And that's the same thing with Kyler Murray. Like, I don't want to play Aaron Rodgers. I got no problem in January or December playing Kyler Murray. Just look at the evidence. So the thing with Aaron Rodgers is all these teams are like hiring his people. When does this ever happen? It doesn't, because that's not the way it works in the NFL. But it shows you how good he is. Like Doc Rivers used to say, and he probably still says this, as long as your talent is better than your problems, you're okay. But the moment your problems exceed your talent, we got an issue. And in pro sports, they say bye-bye to you. In normal people jobs, like, it's hard for you to be that good at your job. The moment you're a problem, they'll just get rid of you, right? But in sports, it's so obvious that everyone's trying to placate right now to Aaron Rodgers. Now, I still believe, and I don't have any inside information on this, just feels like gut information watching this story from afar, that he's going to be on the Denver Broncos. But it does feel like the Green Bay Packers, and I remember when it happened in the offseason, I was like, I don't know, man. It's going to be very, very difficult for Gutekunst and these guys to figure it out, because as a young scout and the way he came up, they don't teach you how to do this, right? Gutekunst isn't a businessman. He was a talent evaluator. He was like writing up guys, right? He's used to going to the combine, the Senior Bowl. Like, he's not into managing relationships, but I'll give him credit. And maybe LaFleur has played a huge role in this, because part of being a coach, you're managing relationships much more than you are as a general manager, definitely as a scout. As a GM, you have to. They've done a good job. I mean, they have done everything humanly possible to put themselves in position to keep the, arguably the most talented player, you'd say Reggie White, in the history of the franchise. Right? So I actually think the Packers, I still think he's going to go to the Denver Broncos, but I'm open to the possibility if someone told me, you know what, Aaron Rodgers stays in Green Bay. Because from a football standpoint, not even a question. If he wants to win, he goes to the Green Bay Packers, or stays with the Green Bay Packers. They keep, Devontae Adams. They sign some more guys. They're going to win 12, 13 games, and they're going to host playoff games. Now, as we saw against the Niners, like, it's actually not ideal when your star player is your quarterback, and you have a passing offense to host playoff games in -5, but that just is what it is. If the Packers were a dome team, they'd be like the Colts. They'd win 15 games a year, and they'd be really tough. But it actually neutralizes their greatest strength, which is their quarterback, when they're playing at Lambeau, in the frozen tundra. It's hard to win that way. But if he stays, to me, they're right there with the Rams' immediate favorites to win the NFC. Kevin O'Connell was hired by the Minnesota Vikings. And I've been hearing about Kevin O'Connell since the mid 2000s. Girl I dated in high school and we were on and off during college. Played water polo at San Diego State, and same year, I'm the same age as Kevin O'Connell, and he was a starting quarterback at San Diego State, and one of her best girlfriends on the team used to, I think, kind of date Kevin O'Connell. I've just been hearing about his name forever, and then obviously he got drafted in the third round by the Patriots. I've kind of followed his career loosely. Really good-looking dude. And obviously his career has really taken off these last couple years. Worked for Gruden with the Washington football team, and then obviously Sean McVay changed his life. He went and he filled in once Sean McVay lost some coaches. I think it was the guy that Seattle hired, Waldron. He took his spot, basically became Sean's OC. The rest is history. A year later, he's the head coach for the Minnesota Vikings. And Minnesota's, I think, kind of an underrated job. Owner has a bunch of money. They've had a lot of consistent success. Now, it's not like the Steelers or these teams that have won, Packers, a bunch of Super Bowls. I mean, when's the last time? I don't think they've been in the Super Bowl in my adult life since like the 70s. Now, they've had really good teams. They've been to the playoffs a boatload of times, and they have historically and consistently drafted really well. They've had really good GMs. And he inherits a team with a starting quarterback. While he has some flaws, good player. Statistically has been awesome these last several years in Kirk Cousins. They have offensive weapons galore. Thielen, unreal red zone player. Justin Jefferson, top 3 wide receiver. Dalvin Cook, top 2 or 3 running back. So he has offensive weapons ready to go. Fantastic fan base, some defensive pieces on the field. What is he? Is he going to be one of those guys that immediately it's like, it wouldn't quite be LaFleur because he's not Aaron Rodgers, but what if Aaron Rodgers leaves? What if Aaron Rodgers goes to the Denver Broncos or the Vegas Raiders or just leaves the conference? Well, they will immediately be the favorite to win the division, and all of a sudden Kevin O'Connell could win 10, 11 games and look like a genius. And there is pressure on him. Like, ultimately, I've been hard on Uberflus. I'm actually a fan of Dan Campbell. But we understand those teams sucking. You know, Justin Fields has a long way to go. Dan Campbell, the quarterback situation, the talent situation is not very good. But when you look at Minnesota, like, if I gave them Sean McVay or I gave them Kyle Shanahan, they would be in the playoffs. 100%. If I gave them either one of those two coaches. So is Kevin O'Connell. Remember Matt Nagy's first year. Now, he had Vic Fangio. But they went 12-4, and they made the playoffs in Chicago and won the division, hosted a playoff game. I don't expect them to win the division if Aaron Rodgers stays with the Packers. But if Aaron Rodgers leaves, there is really no excuse for Kevin O'Connell, beside he just might not be a good coach. We won't know until we see him coach, to not win that division. Because they have talent, and they have a lot of offensive firepower, and they just have a quarterback. Like, you look at Brian Daboll and Joe Shane in New York, they're inheriting a team with Daniel fucking Jones. Like, ultimately, Mike McDaniel is inheriting a team with Tua Tagovailoa. You know, I'm not expecting much out of either one of those guys. Now, I hope, especially Mike McDaniel, I'm a big fan. I hope the New York Giants are good because huge fan base be good for the league. But I'm not expecting either one of those teams to be playoff teams. Hell, Brian Flores was a good coach and couldn't make the playoffs. Now, you would say in Miami, their offense probably be a little better. Their defense come back to earth. Maybe they're a 7-8 win team. I don't know. But Minnesota? Like, a huge reason ultimately Mike Zimmer felt like kind of lost his fastball the last couple of years. And they went through some personnel stuff, but they've always had good players. The coaching just wasn't very good. Now, if this guy is good, and we won't know until we see him coach because he's been on teams where he hasn't been the offensive play caller. If he's a good dynamic play caller, he has good dynamic offensive weapons. Minnesota could be good next year. Hell, they have been kind of good the last couple of years. They've just had some flaws, and they just 8-9, 9-7. Like, that's just kind of, they could be, especially if Rodgers leaves, to me, 11-16.